Joining me now for reaction to this big Trump CFO Weisselberg news is Michael Cohen himself, Donald Trump's former lawyer, host of the Mea Culpa podcast, author of the book Disloyal. Thanks for coming back, Michael.
How you doing, Ari?
I'm well, thank you. This article, which dropped like a bombshell in this hour last night, actually, from the New York Times, we just heard from the reporter, it ends, the final line of the article refers to Mr. Weisselberg being involved in a different federal investigation regarding Trump hush money. And then the article ends, Mr. Cohen, who pleaded guilty to federal charges in 2018, is now cooperating with Mr. Vance's investigation. Where the article ended, sir, is where we begin tonight. Why do you think they, at the Times, and the piece there, what are they getting at? Tell us your reaction to all of this.
Well, first of all, I've been cooperating since day number one. I cooperated with the Southern District of New York, despite they didn't believe that I didn't give them everything, which is just not true. I cooperated with the Attorney General's office, with the with the New York DA's office. I cooperated with 5 different congressional offices. So I cooperated. Thank you, New York Times, for acknowledging that. But one of the things that I took away from this is Alan Weisselberg really knows that he's got the heat coming right now, especially when you have somebody who is as seasoned a lawyer as Mark Pomerantz. Alan Weisselberg, I want to be clear, though, is not the primary target in this investigation. And like what happened to me, he will unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon which way you see it, he will become collateral damage. But it's not just Alan Weisselberg that's going to be collateral damage. It's going to be his 2 sons as well. Barry, who worked for the company dealing with Woolman Rink and Lasker Rink and the Carousel, and Jack Weisselberg, who was involved with Ladder Capital with the 2 loans that were given to the Trump organization. So Alan has a choice. The choice is, do you want to spend the golden years of your life behind bars while remaining loyal to Donald Trump, knowing that Trump would absolutely 100% not be loyal to him? Or are you going to allow yourself and your sons to go to prison versus pass along the information and try to get yourself some sort of leniency? The question, look, I believe that all the people who are watching your show right now put into that situation, whether you and your children go to prison or you provide information, knowing that that documentary evidence is already in the hands of the district attorney and the attorney general. You're not going to escape it. So what's the smart move?
Yeah, or the self-preservation move, smart or not. The essential move for a lot of people is how they'd look at it. As for the last line of the article, Michael, well, they seem to be intimating that he dropped a dime on you, and now it might be your turn.
Well, he definitely dropped a dime, or more than a dime. He probably dropped a couple of dimes on me in order to, get
30, 40 cents, easy, yeah.
At least, right, in order to get that limited immunity that he got, knowing that Alan Weisselberg was involved in the entire setup for the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. The records exist, the conversations exist between myself, Trump. I mean, those were released by recording. On top of that, they have, again, documentary evidence. You see, the problem with everybody in the Trump organization is that they all lie, and they will continue, as I did, including with Congress. We all lied in order to protect Donald. The problem, though, is that there are documents that show opposite, that I wasn't the only one that lied in the creation of that document. It was Ivanka and Jared and the lawyers and Sekulow and Cobb and you name it, Abby Lowell. All of them were involved in the setting up of that information to Congress. So, yes, I'm the one that suffered the consequences, and my belief is that Alan is going to suffer the same consequences.
You're referring there to both the hush money payments, where you're saying, yes, he was involved, and we have reporting on that, and then separately referring to the federal charge regarding misleading Congress or false statement to Congress, and you're saying that laundry list of names you just mentioned were people who were in on that presentation, is what you're saying?
Yes, and again, the point I was trying to make is that everybody lies for Donald, and it's okay to lie so long as that there's no documentary evidence in order to back up The opposite. And my point to you and to your listeners and to your viewers is that that information is already in the hands of those people that are seeking the cooperation of Allen Weisselberg. But, you know, Ari, I always on your show, I always say something which is a little bit different than everybody else. I believe Allen has already cooperated and is actively cooperating with the district attorney's office. I truly believe it because at the end of the day,
what evidence do you have for that?
Nothing, just a personal belief, considering Allen does not want the same thing that happened to me to happen to him and to his children. Again, Allen is
Let me ask you this, Michael.
dissecting it and looking at it from a realistic perspective.
When you look at this New York Times story, were you one of the witness sources for it?
Well, you know, I really don't want to talk about, you know, what role I've played so far in terms of the district attorney's investigation or some of the things that they've asked me. And just to go back one step when I said that I believe he's already cooperating, we also have to look at the facts that's already out there. They brought in Jeff McConney, the assistant controller, a man who works solely for Allen Weisselberg for over 30 some odd years. Jeff doesn't want to go to prison either. So do you think he didn't corroborate documentary evidence that they had on Allen Weisselberg, and now they're presenting it to Allen and saying to him, listen, you're not going to win this. Let me be very clear. You are not. Not only do we have you, we have issues with how you receive compensation, your son, your other son regarding loans made to the Trump organization. You're really in a as Allen Weisselberg, his favorite word, you have a conundrum.
He would say conundrum a lot. Well, this is a conundrum and then some. I think that you're referring to the witness problem that Mr. Weisselberg would appear to have, which is everyone around him, his peers and subordinates, including the gentleman you mentioned, if they're cooperating or providing factual information, according to the evidence, that would be bad for Weisselberg. Then you go up above him, and you have Donald Trump, who's not known to swoop in and do a thing to help people who have embattled legal problems, even on his behalf. I'm saying that obviously knowing the present company lived experience, which I think our viewers know about you, Michael. I asked that about the Times story, and I understand you're right to not say whether you're a source or not, but my job to ask the questions, because do you see anything in the story that struck you as off base or different from your experience, or did the story, which we just spoke to the reporter about, strike you as accurate? Because if the story is accurate in the main, it would suggest that the DA's office has moved past the point of no return in presenting the case on Weisselberg. And by that, I mean they're getting to that ham sandwich phase, that they either get the grand jury to go along or they don't, but they're past that point of no return. But I'm curious, again, because you're close to it, if you found it broadly accurate.
Yeah, I thought it was phenomenal reporting by the New York Times. There was nothing in there that I found to be inaccurate. It was a well-written, it was a well-sourced piece. And yes, I've said it on your show as well. I believe indictments start flying even, within the next 30. I called it, I said before summer. And I do believe still that you're going to start seeing some of the low-hanging fruit indictments because, look, at the end of the day, this is not just about Allen Weisselberg and his kids. And this is not just about ultimately getting, to Donald Trump himself. There's Don Jr., there's Ivanka, there's Jared, there's Eric, there's Rudy. There's a whole group of people that are being looked at. This is not just, hey, let's figure out how to flip Allen Weisselberg because Allen Weisselberg is the key. Allen Weisselberg is a key, but he is not the sole key. And that's why, I believe that he is going to provide whatever information that the DA's office wants, because if he doesn't and doesn't capture the immunity, somebody else will give it. It's just that simple.
Yeah. Michael Cohen, I think plenty of people were curious about your take and reaction given your centrality here. Thank you for coming on The Beat, sir. Appreciate it.